Coming at you live from Eastern Line Surf Shop, Surf Tech Channel. Today we have the G Skate. We're going to go fully in-depth review. I have my co-host here, Dave Pollera. Dave.
Thanks for having me, James.
Thanks for coming on. Good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you as well.
We'll get right into it. The attributes of this board. Full nose, full volume outline with a nice pulled-in tail, nice bump tail right there. The bottom is a slight single to double concave. Tri-fin, set it up as a thruster, 2+1. Dave, how do you ride your G Skate?
I do the nub, and I do two big fins on the side. I tried keels in the side. Didn't work very well. It was very tight. I left the center open thinking I was going to get a lot of speed, and it was just way too tight for me. I prefer my boards a little bit looser. So when you hit the lip, you just get a little bit more throw from the tail. So I prefer two bigger, large fins on the side, and then a little nub in the middle. Keeps it loose, keeps it fast.
I rode mine first initially as a thruster, just with the Alameric AM2 template, the large. And it was a good baseline, but it was pretty tight.
Yeah.
And I think either the way you rode it, I rode yours with the two large sides and the nubster. I loved it. And then also 2+1, really like it. Recommend riding it either of those, not as a thruster, even though it's still a great board as a thruster, but just to maximize and have the most fun, 2+1 or with the nubster to loosen it up.
Mm-hmm.
Me, I'm 5'11", 190 pounds, 185, fluctuate throughout the season. And I typically ride a 5'10", 5'11", 19 3/4-ish by 2.5, 31 liter shortboard. My first experience was on your 5'10". Dave was kind enough to let me use this 5'10" for a long time, had it on layaway. Initially with the 5'10", like I said, I rode it as a thruster. I liked it. It was really good. The 2+1 loosens it up so much more. The 5'10" stock dimensions are 5'10", 22, and 5/8, coming in at 34.5 liters. So I volumed up initially. And what I found with that was it was really, really good paddling. Worked really well when it got pretty big. I rode it a couple days, like 4 to 6 foot barreling, and it worked really well in that. I think that nice pulled-in tail really helps when it gets bigger. It holds pretty well. And I think, like you were saying, with the big heels and the center fin, it was like too tight.
Yeah, so my dimensions, I'm 5'9", 190 pounds, 180 in the summer. So for the winter time, I liked a little extra volume, like a 5'10", just because you're wearing 30 pounds of rubber. You live in Jersey, you eat shitty food.
Yeah.
You probably gain 5 to 10 pounds in a winter on top of that. So you're talking 30 pounds on top of a board. So that's why I like to go a little bigger if it's going to be my all year round board.
Yep.
If I'm using just a summer board, this board in the summer, all like 5'8", maybe even in a little lower. I could probably even do a 5'7", because I'll be 180, trunks on.
Yeah, I agree. With the 5'10", that was some of my gripes with it. Like, it paddled really well and held in bigger surf. Almost rode like a step up.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was getting into smaller waves, trying to rip it, like, my mind was going faster than I could move the board just because so much foam up front. So in this board, the wide point is moved forward, and there's a lot more foam up front. And I felt delayed trying to do some turns in some tighter surf. And that's what made me say, let me try to go a little bit shorter. And I went with this around the same volume as my standard shortboard in the 5'8". And right away, I noticed a huge difference. Like, just taking that extra 2 inches off, moving that wide point back, getting that foam back closer to my front foot, it turned so much faster. And I really noticed that right away. It was awesome. You could, like, rip this board like a shortboard. And it just, like, super fast, really responsive. The rails are low, kind of tapered, similar. Like, if you ride a Happy Every Day, which I know you do, I do as well, the rails are really similar to your Happy Every Day if you ride it in the same thickness, which really good sensitivity, really good rail to rail, and it surfs. You could surf it as fast and as quick as you want it. It's very responsive.
Yeah, correct. Very responsive, very skatey.
The one thing I did notice, just paddling from the 5'10" to the 5'8", I got really used to paddling the 5'10". Like, the sweet spot, I'd say, isn't as broad as some other boards. Like, there's a very tight window for the sweet spot, and I think that has a lot to do with the wide point moving forward. It has a really relaxed rocker. And I think that if you're too far forward, you notice it right away. Like, you're going to catch that nose paddling.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much on the drops, but paddling. I noticed that. And then if you're too far back, you really feel it because you're way out of the water. So I think the sweet spot is tighter than a lot of boards.
Correct. And this winter, or actually later in the fall, when I surf bigger days with this, when I surf days over 6 foot, I blew a couple drops because I would take a really steep drop, and because of the relaxed rocker, I nose dove and blew a couple really good waves, which I would have made on the Happy Everyday,
Yeah.
because it has a little bit more of a rocker to it, and I would have stuck the drop. So late drops in this board is a little bit difficult because it has the big nose and then it has the relaxed rocker, but you can always compensate. You can drop in a little bit earlier. You don't have to stall and wait for that barrel. But hands down, this board's all around awesome.
Yeah.
Great summertime board. Anything up to, I would say, 6 foot. A little bit bigger, you may want to use another board. But you said you had a couple decent days. On bigger days with this board, you changed the fin setup, right?
Originally rode it as a thruster, and it worked really well. Like the first day I rode it, I think I was on a thruster, and it was probably chest high, a little overhead, and bully like onshore quick.
Okay.
And the thruster held really well on the drops, and I was able to make some late drops. And then with the 510 for me, it's a lot more volume than I'm typically used to, so it paddled like a Cadillac for me, you know. So I was able to get in early and make some drops that I normally wouldn't have. So it was really cool. It was a really good experience. And just for someone like trying to find a spot in their quiver for this, I would say if you surf more cruisy, you're not looking to attack a wave and throw the fins out every turn. You know, you're more cruisy positional. I would actually recommend going up in the volume. You maximize it. You could ride it in smaller surf. Me, I wouldn't personally take a 5.8 G skate out in like 1 foot waves. I would either take a longboard out or something way more thick and floaty. But if it's 2 foot and above, I'm taking this 5.8 out and I'm trying to rip it. You know,
two to 6 feet.
Yeah, I would try to attack, and I think it actually works better and better waves. Like it's not so much a groveler or a fish. It's like a alternative craft for good waves. I feel like. Do you feel the same way on that?
I do feel the same way, and I don't use a stomp pad on my board. I like to walk all over the board. I like to move up more. I like to control my speed by moving up. And on the smaller days, you can practically, even a little bit bigger days, you can practically almost not nose ride, but you can get up to the front on this board and still float it and break sections and then get back to your position. Then you can tear apart the wave.
Yeah, I agree. So like with the tail the way it is, with that hip here, the board stays wide until like the last 10 inches of the board. So on the 510, I noticed that like if you put your front foot a little bit just forward of this hip, you could cruise it and surf like a really small wave and cruise around. But then if you want to attack a wave, drop that foot right back and you could push it as hard as you want, you know?
Yeah.
It sits right in there. It's really cool.
I do like to longboard style. I don't longboard much, but I do like to play with the shorter board, especially a board like this, and still have a longboard style technique, which I kind of like doing, enjoy doing in the summertime.
Yep.
Wintertime, waves a little faster, then I just stick to basically just conventional shortboarding.
Yeah. Awesome.
James gave it a chance. He got a couple of sessions on little smaller days in the winter, a couple bigger days as well. But late fall, we had some good swells here, and I rode this board, and it held really well. So it's a great board for almost all year round, and I would highly recommend it.
Yeah, I think that, doesn't matter your skill level, beginner to advanced, everyone can find that this board is fun in all different 1 foot to overhead. I saw some clips of Cam Richards riding whatever I don't know what size it was, but it was custom for him probably, in some pumping Outer Banks tubes. As the 2+1 with the Gdauskas, Merrick collab 2+1, and he was making some incredible waves on it. So I think the right surfer can do whatever he wants on this board, which is unique to, there aren't many boards out there that you can do that. I think, like I said earlier, ride it longer if you're looking more the cruisy, small wave approach. If you're a longboarder looking for something to step down onto, ride it in your shortboard volume if you're high performance looking to crush the wave, destroy it, surf it in some pump and surf. And then I also think it works well, like scaled up as a step up almost. Maybe someone who rides traditionally twin fins, fishes, longboards, if they want to step up for the winter, I think with that pulled in tail, they could find that, they're having fun and a majority of the winter swells.
Yeah, and I've been noticing a trend over the last probably 5 years that the twin fin is very hot right now, and people are loving twin fins and only ride twin fins now. And they've done with thrusters, and they opened up the center, a little bit more speed, loose. I get it.
So just fin wise, for availability, I know the Margetis collaboration fin isn't always available. I did get to ride it with the Mayhem Evil Twin, which the front fins are pretty similar to these. It's just the rear fin is a little bit different. So this set is unique because the rear fin is centered in the base, as to where typically on a 2+1 set, the rear fin is moved back in the base almost towards the end. So this kind of gives it a little bit more pivot, but the Mayhem Evil Twin is also a good option for this board if you can't get your hands on these. And then also typical large thruster set with a nubster, awesome option. I think smaller waves loosen it up, you know. Other than that, I mean, even as a 2+1, this thing held in the barrel really well. Very satisfied with this board.
Yeah.
I would love to add one to the quiver, and I know you have one in yours. So
yeah. So a lot of speed in the barrel, and then you can have a lot of speed control with this board as well. So you don't overshoot the barrel. You can still kind of control your speed, hang in there, and then when you have to blast out, you can pretty easily control your speed on this board, which I like as well.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for tuning in. If you haven't already, you can tap down here and subscribe. Dave, thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome feedback. And if you have any recommendations, leave it down in the comments. Like it, keep the YouTube algorithm keeping us alive. And thanks for tuning in again.